I'm Grant. I'm CEO and founder of Fletch. Today, most of the people using Fletch, I'd say over half are MSSPs or cybersecurity consultants or virtual CISOs. And there's a lot of ways they can use Fletch to make more money, to help their customers and get more services. But also today, we're going to just show off a lot of the new Fletch API. So if you're not an MSSP or a consultant, you're a practitioner or a cybersecurity leader, an IT manager at a company, you'll see a lot of value to use as well as we take Fletch out of being the web app garden that it's been in into your workflows. I'd like to introduce Shane. He's our head of partnerships. I'm based out here in California, Silicon Valley area, and Shane's in Utah. Good morning, Shane. How are you?
Morning. I'm good, thank you. And thanks for everyone for joining. Some of you I've met that have attended, and some others that are new for the first time. So good to see folks who I've seen before.
And so for those who have used the Fletch product, a really good way to think about Fletch is the world's first cyber threat AI. And you have something like Harvey, is a lot more popular and famous than us, right? They've been around longer and a lot of press out there. We are very much becoming that for cybersecurity. We're used in about 13 countries. Our products range from free to our new enterprise API offerings. About 2,000 humans touch Fletch on any given week. And so it's really getting in the flows of a lot of teams out there. Why? Because we trend threats and we trend threats better than anybody else. Threat intelligence has existed a long time, and there's still plenty of threat intelligence vendors, but there's no intelligence there. It's not helping you actually understand what threats matter. Under the hood, Fletch trends the entire threat landscape. We figure out what threats are really trending right now based on all the expertise that's out there across the open source world. So OSINT, for those familiar with the term. And we figure out, okay, well, many sources are talking about this threat. Oh, we're seeing it attacking people in this industry. Oh, we're seeing it attacking people with this technology stack. Oh, we're seeing it target these geographies. And then we can kind of create proxies of what your company is as you start using Fletch. And you're like, oh, interesting. So a company that looks just like me is being attacked by this threat. It's something I should defend against or get proactive about so it doesn't affect me if it starts targeting me, which it likely is targeting you if you have similar technologies, geographies, industry, because of the way AI works. There's a lot of automation and crawling going across the internet. And so Fletch is becoming this proactive cyber threat AI. We're kind of the first to do something like this. A lot of folks in cybersecurity have always been very reactive. And when people talk about AI, they're usually talking about a chatbot they attach to an existing older product. This thing is a generative engine, and it both uses predictive AI as well as generative AI to get the narratives it produces. So today I'm going to show you how you can build with Fletch. This is really exciting to us. For the longest time, customers have been asking us, hey, we really like your web app. I'll show you a quick shot of the web app in a second. Great information. You guys make it easy. It's a better UI than we see from so many cybersecurity products. That's because I originally come from consumer products and really care about UI. But it's actually not achieving the goals that we want it to achieve. It's not in people's workflows. Well, that's because it hasn't been an API. It hasn't been something people can easily put into their workflows. Well, now it is. And that's what today is all about. I'm going to show you a few of the use cases with our API. And these are use cases customers have asked us about. And then we're going to talk about some of the use cases you'd love to see, and I'd love to get your ideas on more use cases. So we're going to interactive here really fast. Okay, let's do it. So for those that actually have the Fletch product, this is the home screen. And people love this daily advisor. It helps them know what to do every day. It helps managers guide their team. It helps MSPs and security consultants really feel like they have a list for each client. And you would go through this and go, like, awesome, this is exactly what I have to do for this client. And the transparency of the client can be very high. People love this section right over here, where it says 48 prioritized alerts out of 614. That's the threat trending engine at work. And it goes across multiple data sources. As you can see, Fletch has many data sources in our actual workspace. You're looking at real data coming in for our actual workspace. People love this because a lot of threats just don't matter right now. Sure, they matter. Sure, you should patch them. They are vulnerabilities of some kind, but it's not the stuff that's trending out there, as I described a few minutes ago. It's not the most pressing. And then this is the future-facing stuff. Companies that look like you, that this is what they're being targeted with, and there's 65 forecasted threats that you should pay attention to. So this is the web app. As I said, it's in a walled garden. People like this, but it's very easy to go, oh man, I have a really busy day. I'm a Microsoft Defender. I'm a Microsoft Sentinel, or I'm over to Splunk and CrowdStrike. It's like, and then one more screen. What I really want is I really want Fletch in the middle. I want Fletch being between all of my alerting products. I want Fletch between my Defender before it goes into Microsoft Sentinel or Splunk or something like that. And it's like, hey, Fletch, tell me what things I should care about. So that's why we developed these APIs. And I'm going to show you a few different use cases of how you can do this. So the easiest way you could do this is Fletch is really smart and it can just work with an API key. We have a lot of integrations. You can see them all here. And our most popular one is Microsoft Defender. We do a lot of work with Microsoft. And to do this in a SIM, for instance, you would have to do quite a bit of data modeling. You'd have to do quite a bit of work to organize your data. And then you'd have to correlate it with threat intelligence. And then you'd have to use your eyes, and then you'd have to do a lot of research and go through everything to figure out what to prioritize. Well, what if you could say, hey, Fletch, call the API on the way and the data's movement between Defender and your SIM, and you can get prioritized alerts right away. This is calling on our Defender license. It's looking through all of the alerts. So it grabbed 614 alerts. You can see our information over here. And it says, hey, 48 of these are trending right now. And picture giving these like a little gold star as it heads towards your SIM. Or if you're not using a SIM and you're not that sophisticated yet, which a lot of people don't need to be, I could talk about that for hours. Done a lot of work with Splunk over the years. You could just output this and use this as your to-do list. And it's doing really smart things all at once for you. One thing, it's generating a summary of what action to take. Two, it's telling you there's a threat family around this. In a lot of cases, it's a whole threat group like Lazarus. Let's take a look at this one. And it's telling you when it's last updated. This is a definitive like record on it. If you really want to go see all the information, kind of think about it as the best record on the internet about a given threat group. This is the latest summary about it. And the summary is really important. Think about to really know what's going on. We generate these as threats change. We have the definitive timeline on threats. That would be over here in this link. You could actually get those from the API if you wanted. And then here's the latest advice. This advice constantly changes. And this advice is customized to the CVEs that match with you from that threat family. So the threat family may be Lazarus, but these are the CVEs that actually match with you from the alerts that you pulled out. So it's super interesting with this too, is you're killing multiple birds with one stone when you have multiple CVE matches. Well, this is your advice and it solves all of those CVEs. So it's a really powerful way to think about things. And then this is really easy to work into your flows between your different tools. I mean, picture for a really simple instance of this where these could all become Jira tickets or ServiceNow tickets. Super fast, exactly what your team should be working on. And it makes them far more efficient. Now they're focusing on the most high value things. And then think about telling Fletch, hey, Fletch, I want to report to my customers and like include some of these summaries and show them all the cool things I did for them today and how quickly I worked on stuff. It really gives you some validation. We don't have API integrations to everything. We're not the biggest company in the world. There are only about 20 humans. And there's about, what, a couple thousand endpoint products out there. Sure, there's the big ones. On that last screen, I showed you a bunch of those bigger ones. But if you don't have one of the ones we integrate with, let's say you're running Sophos, and some people do run Sophos. We don't have an integration to Sophos. What you would do in this case is you would put like a bucket up, like think an S3 bucket, and every day you'd have an automation that dumps the CVEs from Sophos, the alerts from Sophos over to it. And then you would send those over to Fletch. As you can see, I'm dragging a text file I put together here of CVEs, and some of these are high priority and some of them aren't trending at all right now. I dump it in, picture this all being API calls, and I instantly now get Fletch's engine telling me which ones actually matter right now and which ones don't. You see, these are CVs Fletch knows about, but they're not trending right now. They're not the ones that the adversaries are really exploiting. And so here's the ones that are most likely to impact you based on the CVs you uploaded. And once again, a very similar output to what you just saw using an API. there's been so many products on the market for years, and this has been a frustration for me from being a builder of this stuff, that okay, there's another integration, another integration, another integration, another API to keep up with. Well, now this solves that problem. Just send the data over. The LLM can extract these out, and then we can actually match it for you instantly. And you can do this every day. And think about making these JIRA tickets, or think about sending these over to your SIM. Really simple. And once again, there's your prioritization, and there's the number I gave it. So those are two very valuable use cases around alert prioritization and work prioritization. So this makes your team more efficient and smarter for your end customers. But what if you're in the middle of working with a customer and not everything's coming from their endpoint? In this case, you can use Fletch. It understands lists of technologies, it understands threats to industries, threats to geographies. And in this case, the way I would do this, I would just give it a bunch of technologies I care about right now. So, of course, who doesn't run Microsoft? And you notice there's lots of different Microsoft products you could add here. Let's just get Windows. Yeah, there's always a threat to Windows. Apple. There's always threats to Apple. So this is all threats. When you see ecosystem, it's all threats that have to do with Apple products. Cisco, constantly a threat. Too much of the backbone of what we use. Fortinet, there's a lot of threats right now to Fortinet. Let's do that. And these can all be API calls to Fletch. You can hand it a bunch of technologies that you use, and it will tell you if there's threats to them right now. Okay. Financial services. So like information technology, we're an information technology company. And then from a geography, I'm always interested. I'm in the United States. I want to know threats targeting the US. And picture this all being API calls, and then you set these up on a daily job, maybe once a day, and say like, hey, make this output. And you could do this as an inventory upload with a given customer. And then you could also do this with customers as you're working with them. So you could actually do like an interview with them to do this as well. So now if I click forecast threats, I gotta move the zoom bar. There we go. And once again, you could just upload a file with these things too. I just had the team build a very quick UI for this. And it looks like it's 5. So here are the technologies I added. Here are the industries you saw me add. And here's the geography you saw me add. And with that, it's giving me a list of the threats that I am most likely to care about. It's telling me how many of those tags correlate with each one of these. And then it's giving me those summaries that you really like seeing last, as well as telling me, hey, this threat is targeting these technologies, and here's what you actually, well, it's targeting a lot, right? And here's what you should be doing about it as well, short-term and long-term advice. So once again, building these into your workflows, doing this for every customer, really easy. Think about a very quick interview, and then now you have their tech, or think about using things like Jamf for other inventory management products and just handing it over to Fletch, or any endpoint product in the MDM space, for instance, you could just hand this right into Fletch. So really powerful use of our API. Then I had the team do one more thing, and this thing got me really excited. We have a lot of cybersecurity consultants and MSPs who want to get new customers. Who doesn't want new customers? And so what if our web crawler, we have this massive machine that goes out and looks at cyber threats, but another thing it can do is it can actually look at a given URL, kind of like an external pen testing tool would, and it can look at the technologies running there. So I'm going to use Nordstrom's.com. It's the holiday season, and I already have this generated because it takes about 2 minutes to generate, but you can put any URL in here you're targeting. And from that, it'll grab the most trending tags out. So what are the most popular tags from this? There's lots of more that could be external facing technologies on that website. And then it will generate an email from the most prevalently used technologies. So you can actually write a prospecting email here in seconds. This is just another use of our API. I'm just trying to show you how versatile it is. You could do so many other things with creating narratives with the Fletch engine. And so here's a prospecting email you could send somebody over there, and maybe they don't actually know that these threats exist to it. Oftentimes, because of the way we're trending, we're the first to really surface things. We're not going to be the first to go do research and stuff. We're not a research threat intel group, but we will be the first to surface things from the backwaters of the internet in ways that it would take a threat research team or threat intel team a very long time to sift through all that stuff to know, oh, that one matters or that one matters. And so now you have something really tangible that you can send them, as well as a really slick report where it's telling you multiple things that you could do. And you could send this over to them and say, like, hey, just as a gift, here's some stuff that you should do. By the way, my company, we can do this stuff for you nonstop. And we have tools that are really powerful to do this. So there's just 4 different use cases that I wanted to show you guys today. There's a lot more. And I talked about integrating these with your workflows. I think one of the number one things people ask us about is putting it right into Slack or ServiceNow. Sure, with these APIs, very easy to do. And I think you can imagine how that could be. And I talked about with that last use case, how you could use this to get new clients. With those first few use cases, I talked about how you optimize and also how you would go to them and say, hey, I ran the Fletch. It says these are the most important things to do. Here's the advice. Here's a bunch of patch management to do. And so you can actually get a lot more billable hours out of the outputs that Fletch creates for you as well. There's so many ways I can imagine using our API, and we have so many requests from customers to collaborate with them to build these use cases. Here's 3 more. People are so tired of cybersecurity education, and oftentimes it's our job to do it, being cybersecurity practitioners or consultants. With Fletch, we can grab the most prevalent trending threats to a company, correlate that with education curriculum, and build curriculum that would be timely for that company. Let's say they're in oil and gas, and we can use the latest oil and gas threats to teach them about phishing. That's far more interesting than some curriculum they're going to click through while watching YouTube in the corner. That's just some canned stuff or compliance recording. Or you saw that use case on prospecting. What if you had 1,000 vendors? Give Fletch all those 1,000 vendors. We'll go to their external footprint and we'll generate a daily report that you could send to those 1,000 vendors, or a report that you can see the aggregate amongst all those vendors and say, oh, a lot of our vendors run WordPress. Okay, we have exposure to this by proxy, and this is how we can defend against it because they're in our supply chain. The opportunities are really endless. And this is an era where we get to build, and cybersecurity is really changing. So you guys being here today, you're some of the first to get some of this technology in your hands. We're excited to hand it to you. We're excited to see what you guys build with it. I'd love to have some questions from folks in the audience. I'd love to share more. Shane, anything you wanted to add?
I think right now is a really fun time for MSSPs and security consultants that use Fletch because, as Grant's alluded to a few times, the world's kind of your oyster. We give you this really powerful playground to play in how you want to adapt it and mold it to your practice. We realize talking to hundreds of MSSPs over the years, not everyone's alike, or run their business the same way, or use the same technologies, or build the same line items, or anything like that. So the goals go all over the map in terms of what it could do and what people use it for and what they want it for. We have heard that over and over again and have made it more flexible, that you can build it the way you want to build it and make it possible. And I guarantee you we will have many more use cases that we'll be sharing and people coming up with and putting in practice and case studies. And right now we're a very flexible partner working with MSSPs because we want to keep building those and then solidifying them and sharing them. So it's a good time to come on and talk to us.
So we have a question, Shane, from
Yeah.
Anonymous. For MSSP clients across multiple industry verticals and geos, how do you suggest compartmentalizing AI forecasting across different clients without overloading AI forecaster with too broad of a scope? It's actually really easy. It would be different instances of the API, and we would deploy multiple instances for you. For each one of those, you'd have different API calls, and we would set that up as automations with you. Our team's really good at helping you with that. Let's say you have 1,000 customers. We could do that. 1,000 customers, 1,000 different geos. I'd love that problem. So yeah, very doable, and we're built to do stuff like that. Hey, Theodore, you have a question?
Yeah, great. Thanks for a great demo. I run my own security firm, and I'm like consultant, CEO, and all these different types of roles. This is a tool that's like very flexible, I guess I could call it, where it's like no matter what kind of role I have and what your technical manager or even someone that is supposed to make a decision on the board, this is like a good way that follows my flexible role, I feel like. So I'm stoked to see the future of this.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's been a very long road to get to this point, to give this amount of flexibility, and I'm excited to be this company that can do that. So thanks so much. I should have added, you can't do this with general purpose AI. It's not timely. It doesn't understand these kinds of things. It doesn't have the domain intelligence. So at the beginning, I talked about Harvey and law and how specialized AI is emerged with for law and professional services. That's exactly what we're doing for cybersecurity. This is not something you'd be doing with a big company. Why? Because this is the stuff that startups are made to do. And it requires a lot more hard work than people imagine to actually make AIs that do things practical like this. So I really appreciate it. And the deeper you can get in and give us different use cases that you want, like, hey, as your executive side, you're the CEO having to go sell, great. We can create flows with you for that. Okay, you need to do the other side for your analysts. We can create flows for you for that. So the more experiments you want to do, especially during these early days, the better. The harder you hit this thing, the better. Any other dialogue questions? Theodore,
Yeah,
any?
Grant,
Hey.
that's Chris Wilder. So just number one, typically, what is a profile of a company that would put you into a SOC? And the reason why I ask that is because there's a lot of solutions that my customers buy. They may make a huge investment in things like Rapid7 and all these other technologies out there. How do I augment that with that? I know I get the whole thing with Defender. That's that's relatively motherhood and apple pie stuff. But how do you guys integrate with other companies out there like a Rapid7 or a CrowdStrike or a SentinelOne that number one use those in the SOC? But then the second question is you mentioned compliance.
Sure.
And you didn't really spend a lot of time on that. And one of the challenges, because one of the things that my company does a tremendous amount of, is we do a lot of ransomware negotiation. Don't click the link. It's usually the CEO that does it, but it's very much of a visceral reaction. And so how do you guys, from a compliance perspective, one of the things I get three questions. One is, should I pay the ransom? What's a crypto wallet? And then the third one is, my data gone? Yeah, your data's gone. But then the fourth one's starting to come around is, what do I need to do from a compliance perspective? Do I need to disclose? How do I update my cybersecurity framework? Those types of things. Those are the kinds of questions that I'm getting.
Mhm.
And it's really kind of more of post-breach type conversations. But I'd like to kind of understand a little bit more about where Fletch plays in that world, especially on compliance, which is so much more prevalent these days.
Yeah, unfortunately, people think compliance first before they think actually doing good security. And and you and I have
I
talked about it
know.
before. It should be flipped. Think really good security, and by default, you actually do good compliance. So where Fletch plays in those is as you roll out Fletch into your flows, and Fletch is actually in the middle of various things like helping you operationalize the threat intelligence that Fletch pulls in. It starts helping you check a lot of boxes that you probably don't realize that you're checking. And what we don't have time to demo it today, but what I had one person on the team do is look at common compliance frameworks, SOC 2, ISO, high trust, things like that, and show all the different things as you start deploying the Fletch API, all the different compliance checkboxes it actually starts checking by you being more proactive about the threats, by you actually doing the advice that we follow. And as you do those things, we can actually start having the Fletch AI produce reports saying, hey, you actually did this advice. Like, oh, you actually did educate people on phishing, you did it in a timely manner, and you do it on a regular basis and that kind of stuff. And so that's how I imagine people doing it, taking that Fletch advice and operationalizing it into automated reports that you could put into your compliance frameworks to check those boxes instead of just taking the word of somebody on the team saying, of course we do that. Or other compliance boxes, which is like, are you running two-factor? One of the biggest things we oftentimes say is like, if you're running two-factor, you wouldn't have had this problem. Or if you wouldn't have had external facing data from buckets, that you shouldn't be doing that right now. And so those kinds of things are part of the advice and operationalizing that, Chris. Also, just by running Fletch, it checks dozens and dozens of compliance boxes because it's doing the automation. And something I didn't show today, which is another use Fletch has, you can upload against Fletch your SSO data, your Google single sign-on, your Okta, or your Microsoft Enter ID. And that now starts doing insider risk, and it starts showing you where people are located and what SaaS apps they're using and that kind of stuff, which starts checking that box. That's question two. To your question one, we have integrations to the major folks like SentinelOne and Rapid7. Similarly, what I just did with Microsoft Defender, you would give us the Rapid7 key or the Sentinel key, SentinelOne key, and it would generate the list of prioritized alerts from SentinelOne. and you'd feed that right back into your SentinelOne. And so it does have to be a data stream to the Fletch API. We don't have something that deploys inside of the SentinelOne UI or the Rapid7 UI. I thought about doing like a plugin for that. Wiz does that. And we'll see as we get more well-known if people will be willing to do a plugin. But plugins in the cybersecurity world tend to be a little bit taboo unless you're a super well-known brand. So it's hard to do that. So it is this kind of data flow that you would kind of do, which is like give Fletch the Rapid7 key, Fletch tags those, and then put that information into the Rapid7 SIM side. If you're using Rapid7 as the SIM side and as the endpoint side. A lot of people aren't. They're using Rapid7 over here on a vulnerability management and endpoint, then they're using like Splunk over here. In that case, it's perfect. Run it through Fletch in the middle and send it over. Does that answer your question, Chris?
Yeah, it actually, I started to take over the conversation, but I
Great
do that.
questions.
Actually, this one's kind of more for Shane, though. What kind of services do you guys provide in terms of, I'm an MSSP, I'm trying to launch this new business, I'm trying to get into, partner with Fletch. How do you guys get me to market? Because we're all coin operated. So how do you get me to where I can actually start and it'll start onboarding customers and starting creating revenue?
Yeah, so thanks, Chris. I think what it comes down to is we really got to understand what you want to do with it first. So like we just talked about, there's so many things that we can do with it. There's some that we've been doing for years that customers just pay for that. And that's an easy way to stand it up and get it started. So step number one is identify, get on a call. I actually just put a link in our chat. So if you want to just book some time, I can get you access to the API and run you through some of this process. But through that 30-minute call, I go through and identify what outcomes or goals you're wanting to accomplish with Fletch, identify the data that will need to be utilized to map against all the things that Grant just told you and what you were just talking about. So mapping your data inside of Fletch, that can be done in one of 4 ways, and I can go through that in the call. And then also starting to look at what are the outputs. And then eventually we talk through the pricing model and credits and AI, how usage and utilization for budgets. And you can start doing your own math as far as how you can put that into your flow of your standard operating procedures if you're running it to be more efficient, but also if you can create line items. And, we have one that Grant talked a little bit about, which is, how do we win customers with this? And we have built out a deployment of a use case where you can just prospect and find new folks, and that helps you earn new revenue and then gain and grow your customer base with some of the offerings you just talked about. So long answer, takes a first call with us if you haven't done one already, and we walk you through from I'm interested to this is now in my flows to now I'm actually earning money from this.
Thanks, Shane. I thought it was a pretty well said. I would add our technical team is also there to work with you, because a lot of people, generative AI and just implementing AI in general is very confusing. It's very new. And so putting it into your flows is not as easy as a lot of people would like it to be, but we can make it easy. So thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your questions. Theodore, thanks for your questions. Chris, those were great questions. I appreciate it. It was great seeing you guys here today. And Shane, thanks for being here with me on this.
Thank you, Grant.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. And I look forward to collaborating more with you. I appreciate all the comments and questions as well.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.